Okay, these are the solutions then for the second half of the paper from question 11 to question 21 for the Mathematics Unit 2 intermediate tier paper. Okay, so we'll make a start with question 11a. Basically, all you need to do for that question is put that into the calculator exactly as it is there and then round your answer. So if I just put that in exactly as it is, so the square root button is here. Then I need to put in 8.5, the Q button is here. Then I'm adding, open bracket, 4.5, take away 0.76, close bracket, and then I need to square that bracket as well, so I can press the square button. And if I press equals, I've got an answer of 25.0621749969, so I'm just going to write that down first. Okay, and then we've got to round it to 3 significant figures. So the first digit that you come to that isn't the 0 starting on the left side of the number, that's your first significant figure. So this is my second, and my third significant figure would be there. So I'm rounding at that point. So my answer is either 25.0 or 25.1. And because this digit is 5 or greater, that means I'm going to round it up. So this is approximately equal to 25.1. Okay, part B, it says calculate the reciprocal. So there's a cheat button that we can use for this, and it looks like this. It's got x to the minus 1 on it. So we can just type in minus 0.07 and press the x to the minus 1 button there, and that will work the reciprocal out for you. And it's giving me as minus 100 over 7, but if I press my SD button, that gives me minus 14.285714, and that goes on and on forever and ever. We've got to give it to 1 decimal place, so we're going to need to round it to this point here. And because that's an 8, it's going to make that go up 1, so I end up with minus 14.3. Okay. Question 2, show that the triangle below is not a right angled triangle. Well, what we need to do is to figure out what these angles are. And if I can show that then one of them is not 90 degrees, then I'm showing that it's not a right angle. So to do that, you've got to set an equation and solve it. You should know that angles in a triangle add up to 180. So these 3 angles added together should make 180. So 5x minus 9, add 3x minus 2, add 2x plus 1. That's got to be equal to 180. Well, we can collect all our x's together because I've got 5x's there, I've got 3x's there, and 2x's there. Always look at the sign in front of each term. So I've got 5 plus 3 plus 2, that gives me 10x. Then I've got minus 9 minus 2 plus 1. Minus 9 minus 2 is minus 11, plus 1 would give me minus 10, and that's equal to 180. Now I've just got a simple equation to solve. So I need to get rid of the minus 10 first, so I can add 10 to both sides. That would give me 10x equal to 190. Then I need to get rid of the 10 there, so I'm going to divide both sides by 10. So I end up with x equals 19. Okay, so now we know what x is, we can work out what each of these angles are. So 5x minus 9, that just means 5 times x take away 9, but I know that x is 19, so I've got to do 5 times 19, take away 9. This one I would do 3 times 19, take away 2, and this one I would do 2 times 19, add 1. And if I just plug all that into my calculator, 5 times 19, take away 9, gives me 86. 3 times 19 is 57, take away 2 is 55. 2 times 19 is 38, plus 1 is 39. And you can see that there are no right angles, so you've shown that that is not a right angle triangle. Okay, question 13 is a trial and improvement question. Probably the best way to set this up is to do a table. Make sure the middle column is nice and wide because that's where all your workings out goes. Your first column is your guess for x. Your middle column is your working out, which is this bit here, your x cubed minus 2x minus 45. And then the last column is your result, where you decide whether it's too big or too small. So it tells you that the answer lies between 3 and 4. So if I start with the one in the middle, 3.5, basically everywhere I see an x, I put the number 3.5 with a set of brackets, and your calculator will do all the workings out for you. So if I put bracket 3.5, close bracket, cubed, minus 2, bracket 3.5, close bracket, minus 45. And if I put that into my calculator exactly like that, the calculator will do all the work for me. So bracket 3.5, close bracket, cubed, minus 2, close bracket, 3.1, sorry, open bracket, close bracket, minus 45, press equals, and that gives me minus 9.125. Well, if I compare it with the answer I should be getting an answer of 0, so that's obviously a little bit too small. So that's too small. So I need to pick a bigger number. So I'm going to try 3.8. So because the number needs to be between 3.5 and 4, because I know 4 is too big, 3.5 is now too small. So I do exactly the same thing, set of brackets, put 3.8 in, cubed, minus 2, bracket 3.8, minus 45. Again, plug all that into my calculator, and that gives me an answer of 2.272. Well, if I compare that, and now I'm slightly too big. So now I'm going to try 3.7. Don't be tempted to jump to 2 decimal places and do something like 3.61 until you've narrowed it down to 2 numbers which are 1 decimal place apart. So we've got 3.7 cubed minus 2 times 3.7, take away 45. And if I plug all that into my calculator, that gives me minus 1.747. And if I compare that with an answer of 0, that is slightly too small. Right, I'm only giving my answer to 1 decimal place, so both of these are the 1 decimal place. So what I could do, really, my answer is the one which is closest to 0. So if you can see here, minus 1.7 is closer to 0 than 2.27. So my answer is actually x equals 3.7. But if you just do that, you won't get full marks. To get the extra mark, you need to show to the examiner that you know y is 3.7 by doing the one in the middle. So 3.75 cubed minus 2 times 3.75, take away 45. Bracket 3.75, close bracket, cubed, minus 2, open bracket, 3.75, close bracket, take away 45. That gives me an answer of 0.234375. That is slightly too big. And that shows to the examiner that you know that it's between 3.7 and 3.75, because any number between 3.75, which is too small, and 3.75, which is too big, when you round it to 1 decimal place, would always go to 3.7. Right, question 14 is a right angle triangle. It's asking you to find the length. So really, with right angle triangles, it's either going to be Pythagoras or trigonometry. This is a bit earlier in the paper, so it gives you a bit of a clue that it's usually Pythagoras because it's a little bit easier. And also, there's no angles involved. So if there's no angles involved, then it means it's Pythagoras and not trigonometry. So Pythagoras, what you need to do, square both numbers. So 6.5 squared and 16.9 squared. 6.5 squared gives me 42.25. 16.9 squared gives me 285.61. So we square both numbers, decide whether to add or subtract, and then square root our answer. So we've squared our numbers, we've got to decide whether to add or subtract. Well, if you're finding the longest side, which is always opposite the right angle, then we add. Anything else we take away. So because we're finding this side, we're just going to take them away. So we need to do 285.61, take away 42.25. 285.61, take away 42.25. That gives me 243.36. And then I just need to find the square root of my answer, which which I can use this button on my previous answer, and that gives me 15.6 centimeters. So that length there is 15.6 centimeters. Okay, question 15 is a construction question, and it says using only a ruler and a pair of compasses, so you're not allowed to use a protractor. Then you've got to construct the triangle, which has got AB is 7, which is already drawn for you. And then the angle ABC, so ABC, so C is going to be up here somewhere, it's got to be a right angle, so it's got to be 90 degrees. And BAC, so C is going to be up here, it's got to be 60 degrees. Well, I'm going to draw my 60 degree angle first of all. And really what you're doing here is just drawing part of an equilateral triangle. So to draw an equilateral triangle just using a pair of compasses, you need to open your compasses so that the length of the line, so the one point is on the end of the line and your pencil is on the other end. And then if I just draw an arc there, do the same thing on the other side and draw an arc there so that they cross. The distance from there to there and the distance from there to there is exactly the same as the A to B. So what you've actually made is an equilateral triangle. So when I join that line through that point there, I know that I've made a 60 degree angle, because equilateral triangles all have the same angles of 60 degrees. So if you've got a protractor, you can check that measurement, and I'm extending this right up here. Okay, so I know now that this angle here is 60 degrees. And this line has already been drawn for me, is 7 centimeters. Okay, the next thing we need to do is to draw an angle here of 90 degrees. So to do that, what we've got to do here is extend this line. It doesn't matter how far you extend it really. And then I've got to create what's called a perpendicular bisector through that point there, through B, because perpendicular means at 90 degrees. So to do that, get your compass, and I need to mark off 2 lines either side. And now what I'm actually doing, I'm just looking at this line segment from there to there, and I've got to cut it in half using the perpendicular bisector. So we're just looking at creating the perpendicular sector of that line there. So to do that, you put your point on the end there, and we need to open my compass just over halfway, or about 3/4. If I don't do that, they won't cross. And then I got an arc like that. I do exactly the same thing on the other side. Until they cross, and then I just join up that point there to that point there, and that will go exactly through B at 90 degrees, and I need to extend that then to complete the triangle. And you can see that they cross at this point here, so that must be my point C, and this is 90 degrees. So I've completed my diagram there. You need to leave all these lines on. They're called construction lines, and the examiner wants to see those. Okay. Question 16. So a bit further on in the paper, it's a right angle triangle. This time it's got an angle, so that means it's going to be trigonometry. So first thing you need to do, label the sides. So the side which touches the right angle and the angle you're given there is called your adjacent. The side opposite the angle there is called the opposite, and then the longest one is your hypotenuse. Okay, we're asked to work out this side here, QR, we're asked to work out this side. So the next step is to write down SOHCAHTOA. So SOHCAHTOA. And what you need to do now is to tick off what you know and what you want to find out. So we know A is 18. So we tick off my A's, and I want to find O, so we tick off my O's, and then I pick the formulae, because these are 3 separate formulae. I pick the one with the most ticks, which is the TOA. So I'm using that formula there. TOA stands for T for tan, tan of the angle, where the angle is 24. And then that's equal to O over A. That's why I've written the O up in the air a bit. So it's O over A. So opposite over adjacent. Okay, so tan 24 is going to be equal to the opposite, which is what we're trying to find, which is QR, over the adjacent, which is 18. Okay, just to get QR on its own, we need to get rid of this 18. So because it's QR divided by 18, if I take it over the other side, it does the opposite and becomes times. So I end up with 18 times tan 24. And then I've just got to plug that into my calculator, and that will give me the unknown side. So 18 times tan button's there, 24, close your brackets, press equals, and that gives me an angle of minus 38, which can't be right, so I've made a mistake somewhere. My calculator is in radians, that's the problem. So that's something you need to check. So to make sure your calculator is in radians, press shift, setup, and then you want to press in degrees, sorry, you press number 3 to make sure there's a D shown on your calculator, D for degrees. And if I do that again now, it should be correct. So 18 times tan of 24, and that gives me an answer of 8.01 degrees to 2 decimal places. So question 17, you've got 100 boxes that contain 10 balls. 45 of the boxes have got 7 black balls, 3 white. 25 of the boxes have got 4 black and 6 white. And the rest of the boxes are labelled C. You've got 8 black balls and 2 white. In a game, a player chooses a box at random, then chooses a ball at random from the box. So if you choose an A, you've got 45 out of 100 boxes, which as a decimal would be 0.45. And then there's 7 out of 10, which as a decimal would be 0.7, and so on, okay? All this has been completed for you. Just got to fill in this one here. You should know that each set of branches add to 1, so you can either add these 2 up and take them away from 1. Well, actually, that's what you have to do because it doesn't tell you how many boxes there are for C. So 0.45 plus 0.25 is 0.7 or 0.70. So this would be 0.3 or 0.30. These are going to add up to make 1, each set of branches. Okay, it says, what's the probability the player will select a black ball? So a player could choose box A and then choose black, or they could choose box B and then choose black, or they could choose box C and then choose black. So they've actually got 3 different ways of getting black. So what you do is you multiply it as you go along each pathway. So I've got to do 0.45 times 0.7, and then if you've got more than one pathway, you add them all together. So it's that times that plus that times that plus that times that. Okay, and you can put that all into your calculator in one go if you want. 0.45 times 0.7, close my bracket, plus 0.25 times 0.4, close bracket, plus 0.3 times 0.8, close bracket, and that gives me an answer of 0.655. So the probability of choosing the black ball is 0.655. Okay. Part C says, if a large number of people played the game, approximately what fraction of them would you expect to choose a white ball? Well, if there were 0.655 people chose a black ball, because probabilities add up to 1, then if I took that away from 1, that would tell me that 0.345 would be the probability of choosing white. So which fraction is closest to that? Well, you can use your fraction button to help you here a little bit, or you can change these to decimals. So this one is actually 0.1. This one is 0.2. You can do that on your calculator by just using your fraction button, putting in 1/10, and then if you just press the SD button, that will tell you what it is as a decimal. So this one is 0.25. This one is 0.3 recurring, so it goes on forever, and this one is 0.5. So which of these fractions are closest to 0.345? So looking at this, I would say that this is the closest fraction to that. It's roughly a third. Question 18, factorize. That means take out the factors and put it into brackets. If you've got two terms, 99% of the time it just means one set of bracket, unless it's the difference of two squares. And then I've got to look first of all to see if there's any numbers which are common to both, but there isn't. There's only a 5 here, so a number can't come outside. But I've got 3 x's here and 1 x here, so I can take an x outside. And then to figure out what you need in your brackets, x times something has got to make x cubed, so it's going to be an x squared. I've got a minus sign here, and then x times something makes 5x, so that's got to be 5. Okay, we've got double brackets here, and you can use the word FOIL to help you expand these. So FOIL stands for you multiply the first two, the outside two, the inside two, and the last two. So the first two, I'm going to multiply that by that, so that would be my f. So 2x times x gives me 2x squared. My outside two would be the furthest two out in the brackets, so 2x times 4, and it's 2x times plus 4 there, which would give me plus 8x. The inside two would be the furthest two in here, which is my minus 3x. My minus 3 times x. Minus 3 times x gives me minus 3x, so that's my inside two there. And then the last two left in the brackets, so it's minus 3 times plus 4. Negative times a positive gives me a negative. 3 times 4 gives me 12. That gives me 1 mark, and then I need to collect my two middle terms together to simplify it. So I've got a 2x squared, then I've got plus 8 minus 3, plus 8 minus 3 is plus 5x, and then I've also got my minus 12. Okay, this one is the opposite of what you just done. So where you had your answers here, it's like you've been given your answer and you've got to go backwards and put it into brackets. So to do this, we need 2 sets of brackets. We've got 1, 2, 3 terms, so that usually means you need 2 sets of brackets. And if you remember from what I just said above, FOIL, the first two multiply to make the first term there, so it's got to be x and x. And then the last two, they multiply to make 28 and then add or subtract to make the minus 3 in the middle. So the first thing we need to do is write down all the ways of making 28. So we could have 1 times 28, 2 times 14, and 4 times 7. Well, the pair that I choose, I've got to multiply to make 28 and add or subtract to make 3. Well, there's no way I can do it from 1 and 28 or 2 and 14. So the numbers in my brackets have got to be 4 and 7. Now, if this sign here is negative, it means that the signs in the brackets are a plus and a minus, so they have to be different. So to make minus 3, I would need plus 4 and minus 7, because add 4 minus 7 makes minus 3. And when I times them, plus 4 times negative 7 gives me negative 28. So I need a plus there and a minus there. Okay, question 19a, it's asking you to circle the equation of the line that is parallel to 3y equals 2x plus 6. So for this question, it doesn't really matter what's on the end there, the plus 6, because that's your y-intercept, where the line, if you drew the graph, crosses the y-axis. But what you do need is the same number in front of y and the same number in front of x. And if you look at that, it's going to be this first one here. So you've got a 3 in front of the y and a 2 in front of the x there. Okay, circle the equation of straight line is perpendicular to the line 5x minus 3. So if it's perpendicular, this gives me the gradient, the number in front of x there, which is the 5. If it's perpendicular to that line, what it means is the gradient will be the negative reciprocal of 5. So the negative reciprocal of 5, if you think of 5 as being 5 over 1, reciprocal means you just turn it upside down, so it becomes 1 over 5. And you change the sign, so it's positive here, so you change it to a negative. So you've got to find which ones of these has got a negative 1/5 in front of the x. Well, this has got 5, so it's got a 5th, because really that means 1x, doesn't it? So it's got a 5th, but it's not negative. This one has just got a 5, so is this one. This has got a negative 5, so it's going to actually be this one here, because really that's negative 1x, isn't it? And negative, I've got my negative 1/5 there, which is what I'm looking for. Okay, it says calculate the size of the reflex angle AOB. AOB, reflex means that you're finding this angle here. Anything bigger than 180 degrees is a reflex angle. So you need to know your circle theorem rules, and one of your rules is that this angle here is always twice this angle. So the angle AOB, which is the obtuse angle, AOB is 37 times 2, because it's double, which is 74 degrees. And then you should know that angles around a point add up to 360. So if this one is 74, I can take it away from 360, and that will give me the reflex angle AOB. So 360, take away 74, you can use your calculator, it gives me 286 degrees. So this angle here, 286 degrees. Okay, last question. Calculate the size of x. Okay, so if we sort of ignore this little triangle on the bottom, we've got a right angle triangle, but we've only got one piece of information. To use trig or Pythag, we need at least 2 pieces of information, so I can't do anything at the moment. But if I look at the other triangle, this side is common to both, so I could use this triangle to actually figure out what this side is here, and then I would have 2 pieces of information in this triangle here to help me work out what x is. So what you're told here is that the area of this triangle is 35 centimeters squared. You're also told that the base is 5. So you should know that the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. So what you've actually got here is that the area is 35, the base is 5, and then you times it by the height. So this would be your height really, and then you're dividing by 2. So what would h need to be to give me an answer of 35? You could help yourself here. If I took the 2 over there, I would end up with 35 times 2, so I end up with 70 equal to 5 times h. And now you can work out what h is. 5 times something gives me 70. Another way of looking at that, 70 divided by 5, which is 14. So h is 14 centimeters. Okay, now I can just concentrate on this triangle there, and I'll just draw it without the other one there so it doesn't get confusing. So here's my right angle. I now know that this is 14, that's 32, that's B, that's D, and that's C, and we're trying to find the angle x here. So right angle triangle, 2 sides given, and there's an angle involved, so it's trigonometry. So like we did on the other question just now, label your sides. So the side that touches the right angle and the angle is your adjacent. The side opposite the angle here is called the opposite, and then the longest side that's left over is your hypotenuse. Write down SOHCAHTOA. And then like before, we tick off what we're given. So we're given A, and we're given H. So this time I'm using the middle formula, which is CA. CA stands for C for cos. Cos of the angle, this time it's x, we don't know what it is. And that's equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So cos x is going to be equal to the adjacent. The adjacent is 14. The hypotenuse is 32. So this is slightly different to the other one because we need to find out an angle, not a side. So to get x on its own, we have to do the opposite of cos, which is called cos to the minus 1, inverse cos, cos to the minus 1 of 14 over 32. And to do that on my calculator, I pressed shift cos, and it should come up cos to the minus 1 with a bracket. Then I put the fraction button, 14 over 32, close my brackets, press equals, and I've got an answer of 64 degrees to the nearest whole number. Okay, that's it.